Larry and Jay have meant to this mountain over the years. I've gotten very well versed in saying the number 37. In case you didn't know, Larry's been serving here for 37 years. It might interest you to know that the cost of a first-class stamp when Larry started was 12 cents. Larry's social security number is 17. Now you all know you can steal his identity. When we were planning this, I asked Jay and Larry both who should speak on the other's behalf. And so to get things started, I'd like to invite Reverend Joe Martin to speak on behalf of Larry. Now remember, Joe, you're a pastor. We talked about time.
Just made a few notes. I want you to know that I consider it an honor and a humbling moment for me to be asked to speak on behalf of Larry and to you this evening, Larry. Though I know I stand a far distant second to the person who would have been here, and that was Charlie Smokey Martin, yours and mine, and one of Jumonville's very best friends. To that I say, requisite in pace, Smokey, until we all meet again at Jesus' feet. My wife Susan asked me what I was going to say or speak, and I said, I have a few ideas. It's hard to encapsulate 45 years of friendship and 30 years of deaning at Jumonville in 4 minutes. So I'm not even going to try. Larry and I have had a wrapped up around experience for Jumonville, and it's changed our lives together. Susan said, are you going to tell stories about how Larry always let you get away with murder and do that at camp? Are you really going to let him tell how you broke all the rules and Larry turned a blind eye? Is that what you're going to do? And I said, yes. When Larry's dad retired, the leadership changed, and many of us suffered through the summers of our discontent. I realize that's a misquote of Shakespeare's Richard III. Sorry, Bill, but it was true. And then Larry came in, and things began to change, and wonderfully so, for the positive. Upgraded all kinds of things. It used to be that we had to gather in front of the Captain Webb Hall. A fellow would come up from Uniontown and climb out on the roof. His son would hold his feet, and he would set up his tripod. He would throw the cape over his head, take the lens cap off, and told us, you can't smile or move for the next 2 minutes. At the end of that, we all got a camp picture. Black and white, 8x10 glossy photo. Reminds you of a crime scene picture. That photo was transferred over to an etched lead plate, and we all got a copy. But Larry changed that. Larry, at one dean's meeting, we were down, he was explaining all the new technology that he brought in. Stuff that people wouldn't know how to use for years to come. I remember sitting there at one dean's meeting, and Larry was gone, and he said, now we have a modified XCAM Z drive that overshadows the Comstock that we have at the house main port. We also can advance the screen on that, which gives us double the drive and 3/4 of what we need. I leaned over to a staffer and I said, what does that mean? And he said, nobody knows. What it meant was that we now had full video stories of our week at camp. And the changes and the upgrades under Larry's direction kept on coming. And they were great. The ropes courses, both high and low, which were absolutely great for my camps. Expansions and upgrades of the cabins and the buildings, and of course, there's the end. Larry showed it to Susan and I while we were having a church retreat here. The building was still in the process of coming up, and Larry took us down and walked us through it. And he said, Joe, this would be great for your group. Well, my church family retreat booked the next Labor Day weekend in the inn, and the bishop's cabins. And for the next 23 unbroken years, we were blessed beyond all measure. But for breaking the rules, I never knew that there was a rule that said you are not allowed to have public sleeping. That's not a rule. Who made that rule? I still think Rienla made that up, but she threatened to throw us out. So we didn't public sleep anymore. Still don't know what that means. But it was the camps that you and I developed, Larry, that brought the light to shine. Swim camp, faith, fun, and fellowship, and the ultimate, the spirit and the sport spectacular. Now I'm here to confess to you that I am old school. And what I mean by that is that all of my camps, all of them, were competitive in nature from beginning to end. We had family groups, they competed in the ropes course, we had the swimming pool, the volleyball contests, anything and everything that brought these people together. A lot of them were standard games, things that we played. Others, games that I made up. And that's where my friend, my good friend, my best friend in the world ever, Larry, would turn a blind eye and a permissive smile. To all of his complaining, it's against the rules. All I ever heard from his staff is, this is against the rules, you can't do that. Now I want you to know that my camping activities were never negligent nor careless. Bordered on questionable maybe, but part of the Summer Swim Olympics that we always had at the pool, I always wanted to have a greased watermelon battle. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's like a rugby scrum, except you do it in the pool. No, lifeguard said no, you can't do that. The watermelon breaks, the seeds get in the filter, it plugs the water, makes the water greasy. No, we really don't allow it. Someone might get hurt. I said, call Larry. Ask him. And they would call, and Larry would get on the phone, and I would stand there patiently, and the lifeguard would explain what the issue was and what wasn't allowed. And she spoke with Larry, and all I heard on the other end was, through the phone, who's the dean? And she said, it's Joe Martin. And I could hear Larry, yeah, let him do it. One of my volunteer staff who counseled with us every year was Colleen Martin, Smokey's wife. I could always count on her. She was one of the best ever I had. Nice girl, smart, modest, and she was a whole lot tougher than she looked. And she had fingernails that belonged on a leopard. Colleen, who was always in it to win it with her family group, made her mark on everybody by leaving a blood slick in that pool that rivaled the movie Jaws when we were finished. And the lifeguards always said, that's why we don't play. And I said to the lifeguards, that's why we do play. But then came Spirit and Sport Spectacular, my last camp, where I combined everything that no one else was ever allowed to do all in 1 week, including the 1 Corinthians 9:24 race, otherwise known as the Jumonville Ironman. When I devised this race, I explained to the lifeguard, the whole camp is going to start down at Green Cathedral. They're going to run up the trail. They're going to cross over the road. We're going to open the gates to the pool fence. They're going to run through there, run into the pool area. They're going to run through the pool area. They're going to jump in the deep end. They're going to swim to the opposite side. They're going to climb out. They're going to go out that fence. They're going to run down through the lower camp. They're going to hurdle every one of those benches and start all the way up to the edge of the world where it would finish. She said, you can't do that. You can't run across the road. I said, why not? It's part of the challenge. It'll be like that arcade game, Frogger, you know what I mean? That's all we're doing here. We have to dodge the cars. You can't run in the pool. Nobody runs in the pool. You can't run around the pool. You can't wear shoes in the pool. You can't do any of that. No. I said, call Larry. You'll understand. It was always the lifeguards. lifeguards and librarians, I've never understood that. They've got pesky rules all the time. She called Larry, explained in hysterical tones what I had in mind and what I planned to do. And this time, Larry showed up. I took Larry aside and went through it with him step by step with all the safety features that I had built in, but I never mentioned to her. It must have slipped my mind during her aspect of hyperventilation. Larry and I went back to the pool area, and good old Larry, right in front of the lifeguard, without saying anything else, said, "Looks good to me, Joe. I don't see the problem. Go ahead." She didn't speak to me for the rest of the week. But I'll end with this. At the very last camp that my wife and I gained, Larry asked me for a favor. A family had registered for Spirit and Sports Spectacular, but they had a foreign exchange student from France who was sent to America 2 months earlier than planned. And Larry asked me, was it possible for him to accompany their son in my camp, even though he was 2 years younger than my age group? And I said, sure, Larry, even though I know we're not supposed to break the rules. And Larry introduced me to this young man named Jean-Luc. You gotta be kidding me, Jean-Luc. But no, it's true. Jean-Luc was a 90-pound weakling from Paris who had never, ever, ever been outdoors, ever. He looked exactly like Froggy from The Little Rascals, about 4.5 feet tall, red curly hair, round glasses, but instead of that heavy voice, he had a French accent, heavy. His English was pretty good, but his syntax was a little off in the sentences. But when he swore, he knew all the words in English. And true to form, anything that could happen bad happened to Jean-Luc. He fell, he tumbled, he tripped, he was dragged, he was scratched, he was bit. He almost was drowned twice playing in the pool. By the time he was done with that week of camp, he was bandaged from head to toe, and I was afraid that his host family was going to file suit or not recognize him when they showed up. I looked at him and I thought to myself, you know, the French haven't been treated this bad here in America since 1754. Jean-Luc, I called him Captain Picard, part-time, and I called him Froggy the other part. I can tell you right now that poor old Jean-Luc was no material for the French Foreign Legion. But he might have been able to make Starfleet the way they wimped that show out. But I'll give it to Froggy. He was game. I saw him on the tension traverse, working his way across, and in the background I could hear him sing the La Marseillaise. And then he fell and didn't let go, and he dragged himself all the way across, and he got up. Raise your right hand. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I promise not to think any less of Reverend Joey for what he's going to say. Jean-Luc got up and he was scratched from head to foot, his shins and everything. He looked at himself and in perfect English he said, "Oh, shit." When camp was over, and it was Susan and my last camp after 30 years, his host mother came over with Froggy and said, "Jean-Luc would like to say something to you." Froggy grabbed me around the middle, that's all tall he was, and said to me these words, "In my life, best time ever had." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, me too, kid." Larry, I can honestly say that you were ultimately responsible for our deaning successes at camp. the leadership that you brought to Jumonville, the freedom that you offered to all of us to build and to develop camping ideas and programs, the endless support that you offered, the ideas and the ideals and the innovations that changed things here for the better. You poured your heart and soul into this place in every way. In Western Pennsylvania, we Methodists here, Jumonville is to us our Mount Horeb, our Sinai, the mountain of our God, Harek Halim, standing in the shadow of the sign of our Savior Jesus Christ. And Larry, almost as long as Moses in the wilderness. You led the way. You looked like Charlton Heston before he walked off the set. But Larry, I want to say this, and to all of you who put up with me this long. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jumonville. And thank you, Larry. You talked the talk and you walked the walk. And the Beatty cousins and the Martin cousins are forever touched. And I have to agree with Froggy. In my life, best time I ever had. And once again, I broke the rules. Thank you.